welcome to our Book Alive Day. Tonight, we're going to have an amazing time reading books and getting to dive into the world of different authors and celebs. It's going to be an amazing night of creativity. And just as Albert Einstein said, creativity is intelligence, having fun. Tonight, we're going to have fun as we listen to different stories of struggles, joy, and victory, and we share our own stories together. So I want to welcome all of you online and all of us on site. It's going to be an amazing session. So stay tuned and get ready for the fire that will come up on books tonight. We have an amazing array of authors and celebs that are going to be sharing their thoughts with us and stirring us up in this sphere of creativity. So if you are there, you can share this page with your friends and get them to all come together to be inspired by the readings tonight. We have one lovely people already set in the house, and we believe that this edition will spark a fire in you. This program is being brought to you by the Okurin Gallery and Creative Hall, an initiative of Sami Center, Olafusi, Olalekon, and Toyin Adeshola, the Okurin herself. So we are doing a program this week called GENOMETRICS. It's a week-long event examining and amplifying the struggles, the joy, and victory of sickle cell warrior. And we started on Sunday with an amazing launch of the gallery and the creative hub, and we had different people troop into our office to see the wonderful pieces of art. And the creative hub is open to every form of artists, whether you are in the literal arts, you are in the theater arts, you are in the painting angle, you are in every form of art. This hub has been open for you. Some of you might be have been looking for means of getting your works out, getting visibility for your body. This hub is for you. And tonight, we're going to throw the spotlight on literal arts, where we'll be looking at different thoughts from different authors and celebs. So stay tuned as I read out the authors that will be speaking tonight. And first on my list is an amazing author. His name is Dickson. It's a wonderful African name, actually. I hope I don't murder the name. His name is Dickson Ekhaguere. Dickson is an amazing Nigerian author, playwright, and entrepreneur. Born live in Nigeria, Edo State, and he has been doing an amazing work in the literal art space. And tonight we shall be examining his book titled Nigerian Superheroes. This book was recently approved by the schools in Lagos State Ministry of Education, and over 10,000 copies are already currently in circulation and being in the space of schools. So tonight we're going to have the author live read to us excerpts that are going to inspire you as a Nigerian hero. The next on my list is an amazing young man called Niyi Goriola. He's already live in the house. Niyi is a great professional. He started his journey in 2004 with the Lagos State Civil Service, and he works in both public and private space as a human capital developer. He once was a speaker at the Social Media Week in 2017, and he spoke on the use of visuals in non-profit communication. His interest in education was ignited when he realized the need to provide more helpful interventions to public primary schools in Lagos State. And that sparked the fire, and he was able to found what we call the Lupni Center. And the center is focused on enlightening and empowering many people with skills required to bring a life through wisdom and revelation of God's word. So Niyi is live in the house. I'm going to have him short. Next on my list is an amazing Nigerian American novelist. Her name is Sefi Atta. She's going to be joining us live from the US, and you can't afford to miss her session. She's a prize-winning Nigerian American novelist, short story writer, playwright, and screenwriter. Her books have been translated into many languages. Radio plays have been broadcast through BBC, and her stage plays have been performed internationally. And tonight we're going to be examining one of our front-burning books titled The Bad Immigrant. You can't wait for that moment. It's going to be awesome. And we have two celebs in the house. The first is none other than the amazing Yinka Davies. This lady has traversed the length and breadth of the entertainment industry. She's a Nigerian vocalist, dancer, lyricist, and judge of our reality show, The Nigerian Idol. And she has been in this industry for 28 years, and she's going to be the honors of reading the book Still Standing tonight. So get ready for that experience. And last but not the least is a man called Ayodele Okurin, popularly known as SACO, the Senator Advocate of Comedy. This guy is an amazing piece of art. His words literally throwing up banners when you listen to him. He's going to be reading tonight from a wonderful author, which I will not let you know now until the gets here. All right, so quickly, we're going to have the first author who's going to be reading to us from his amazing book, The Nigerian Superheroes. So, with great joy and elevation, let's welcome to this reverend seat, Dickson Ekhaguere. Can we clap our hands for him as he makes his way to treat us with amazing thoughts from his amazing book? You're welcome.
Thank you so much. It's a great pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I find it quite much of an honor to be here amongst all of you. And I say thank you so much for the work you're doing. God bless you all. I want everybody to appreciate that. So, Nigerian superheroes. Sometimes people ask me what prompted the idea. It's a children's book, actually. One of my most notable books is Unstable. It was among the top 10 in the 2018 NLNG Nigerian Prize for Literature, and also an award winner. Meanwhile, this book, Nigerian Superheroes, was like a clarion call to everybody and the need to pursue the next generation of patriots. Because the things we hear about Nigeria these days, they are quite sickening. They are not motivating at all. So I felt the children of tomorrow shouldn't follow the same path or the same line as we have today. If we're going to build a future, we have to start today. And so I'm trying to build a future using the skill I know how to use best, which is writing. So the Nigerian superheroes actually, it was born from the idea that Nigeria has actually empowered all of us. No matter what negative perspective or impression some of us may have about Nigeria, or a lot of people have about Nigeria, one thing is certain, that Nigeria has impacted all of us, has gifted us, has given us that talent. So when you see people overseas and you begin to ask, when you see them excelling, it is very easy to notice them. You just spot a Nigerian, you say, oh, that's a Nigerian. Because you see the Nigerian spirit in them. You just know that that is the Nigerian spirit working, excelling. So that was where this idea came from, the Nigerian spirit. And I said, how do I use this Nigerian spirit to write a story? Not just for the people of today, but for the leaders of tomorrow. And then I decided to personify that Nigerian spirit. So that Nigerian spirit became a supernatural being. And in the book, I called her the Green Woman because she represents Nigeria. So when she came in, her intention was to empower Nigerian children. It was just a representation, like a metaphor. She empowered 3 boys, Nedu, Sadiq, and Kola, from the 3 geographical regions of Nigeria. Now, the people she chose, they were not people who were very rich, who were having the best time of their lives. Nedu for himself was under a very, very wicked aunt who never cared about his well-being. all she cared about was that Nedu did everything she wanted, and Nedu always suffered punishment. Most nights, she would lock Nedu out of the house and make sure that Nedu never slept in the house, and she didn't care about his safety. And then for Sadiq, he was facing bullies in school, and they were always dealing with him every time he was in school. And for Sadiq, the problem was that he was with his mother, who was blind, and they were beggars. I'm sure some of us can relate to this kind of story. Now, this Nigerian spirit came, this great woman came, and she empowered the three of them. She gave them supernatural power. And she mentioned to them that this power that I have given to you, it is not so that you can use it for your personal gains. The truth is, Nigeria has empowered a lot of us, especially, let's go to the political sphere now, politicians. Nigeria has empowered leaders, politicians, who have supernatural power to make Nigeria the great nation that we all want it to be. But a lot of them are not doing that thing. So I was trying to teach young people that Nigeria has empowered all of us, but it doesn't mean we should use it for ourselves. But let's see what Nedu did first, because of the wicked ant. If you have the book, you go to page 29. The next morning, while it was still very early, Nedu sneaked into Auntie Dimama's room and met her still sleeping. This was the morning after an encounter with a green woman who has empowered him with a supernatural power. So he stood by her bed and looked down on her as she snored. Nedu wondered what the cruel woman was dreaming of. Maybe beating me, he thought. His mind flashed back to the previous night's experience with the green woman. He felt powerful. His reason for sneaking into Auntie Dimama's room was for a purpose, and he was convinced of what he was about to do. First, he needed to be sure he still possessed his superpower. So he used his mind power to paint an image on the wall, and immediately, the painting formed on the wall. He smiled and nodded. It was time to avenge all that his aunt had done to him. He was going to give his aunt the scare of her life. He would conjure a creature so terrifying that the fear would continue to linger in his aunt's mind forever. He closed his eyes, recollected all the things he had seen and heard about. It wasn't long before a frightening creature appeared. The creature was huge, about twice the height of his auntie. It was clothed in a flowing gown. It had the face of a lion and the ears of an elephant. The creature was so terrifying that it even scared Nedu. But no, Nedu was only able to stand it because he was the one that created it. The creature stood by the bed, very close to Auntie Dimama. Then it tapped her gently, but she turned away, cuddling her pillow. The creature tapped her again, and she was getting upset, thinking it was Nedu. With her eyes still closed, she said, "If that your stinking hand touches me ever again, I'm going to deal with you." The creature waited briefly, but she did not wake up. Then the creature climbed on the bed, shook her vigorously, and let out a loud growl with a mix of both a lion's growl and an elephant's trumpeting. It was the fright of her life indeed. When Auntie Dimama opened her eyes and saw the creature, she screamed and blacked out. At first, Nedu was scared if she was okay, but in a little moment, she opened her eyes again and jumped from the bed with an unusual energy, running aimlessly around the house as the creature pursued her. "Ewo, Ewo, I'm dead, though." Nedu watched the event with so much amusement as he laughed and laughed. He had never had that much fun before. He thought that was the best moment ever, to see his aunt pay for what she has done to him. Just while he was having his little fun, the green woman appeared, ending the confusion by withdrawing the creature. She was only visible to Nedu. "Nedu, I told you that your powers are not for personal gains. Why are you doing this to your aunt?" she asked. "She deserves it," Nedu replied, trying to contain his laughter. "That is too bad. You're not supposed to pay evil for evil. I have warned you before. It always has a way of turning around to haunt you. For this selfish behavior of yours, you have caused your aunt to hate you even more." "But she doesn't know I created the creature, but I know. Anytime you do anything selfish and evil, you will suffer a consequence. Even though she does not know you did it, your consequence will be that her hatred will grow for you." "No!" Nedu replies, but, she says, no, but, it's your lesson. When you do good for others, then her hatred for you subsides. I don't, she disappeared. While Nedu stood there wondering, his aunt approached him angrily. Nedu, you were there laughing at me. How dare you? You let that thing enter my house. She quarreled, pulling Nedu's ears and started to beat him. Nedu had the worst time of his life that day. It was an experience with his auntie he prayed would never happen again. This was just a part of it, where Nedu was taught a lesson. The other children also found a way to bring up revenge. I don't know how many minutes I have left. Okay, just 10 minutes. Okay, still have that. That's fantastic. So what was happening was that they wanted to seek revenge with the power they had. It's like when some politicians gain the leadership role. The first thing they want to do is either to punish their opponents or to amass as much words for self-aggrandizement as possible. And that is not what we want. If Nigeria must move forward, we must have people who are not there to fill their pockets, who knows that this superpower that has been given to them is for the good of others. And then we have some place where he said, no child is born, the Green Queen was talking to them, said, no child is born without a gift. Every child is a star. That's page 44. Children are exceptional beings, and some of them have been given special powers, which when used positively can make a good change. Some are gifted with the power of intelligence, some with the power of artistic or athletic abilities, some with the power of wealthy parents, and so on. But with great power comes even greater responsibilities. This was what the great woman always reiterated to Nedu, Sadiq, and Kola, never to abuse their powers or use them for personal gains or revenge, but to help others. I may have used the political sphere, for example, but in our little circles, in the microcosm of where we are, how are we using the little powers we have? Are we using it for the betterment of others? And that is what we are trying to preach with this book. About the book, said from an early age, Nedu, Sadiq, and Kola must learn that there is more to being children than being selfish and irresponsible. The sense of responsibility and service to their fellow humans is what the Green Spirit tries to inculcate in them, that the young must grow and correct the mistakes of the past. They must learn not to seek their own gain, but to ensure their fellow countrymen are rescued from their troubles. Nigerian Superheroes is a story that promotes national consciousness and responsibility, irrespective of one's religious, political, and tribal affiliations. It teaches the Nigerian child to be his brother's keeper. So that is what this book is about. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Can we give Mr. Dickson a Right now, I want to question about your experience with the book and how the book has affected your own life as an author. So I'll take 3 questions. I'll take 2 from my end, and I'll allow the audience to take 2 questions. So, having published this book, what has your experience been with the book in society?
Most times, I am surprised when I get calls from children thanking me for this book. Some of them tell me they're very inspired. Recently, I partnered with someone by the, let me not mention names here, and we had more than 1,000 copies printed and given out freely to students. So the intention is actually not to make gains, it is to impact lives. And for me, it is doing the job. Because when I receive this call, sometimes it's not that they own these phones, they are calling me with, it's their parents' phones. And it surprises me that children can feel the impact of such message.
Amazing.
Yes.
Amazing. I know in the world that we work in, the space we work in, it's warriors, children who are disadvantaged because of their states, or within in schools, or are going through troubled times. What are your words of encouragement for them to discover their own superpowers in spite of the pains they are going through?
What I understand is that in whatever people assume to be disability, in fact, it's a double ability, because the more they underrate you, the more powerful you even become. And the truth is, when you overrate yourself and you go somewhere, by the time people set you on a pedestal, the probability of you failing is very high. But you see, when you go to the last seat and they say, no, you can't do anything, you will shock them. And when you shock them, you become a star. So in whatever little talent you have assumed you have, it is what will make you that star. Because they don't even think you have anything. But you have to prove to them that you have everything.
I love that. Then shock them behind everything. Oh, do you have any questions from the audience to amazing author? Any question?
Yeah. My question will be, it's a great work you're doing because I'm very happy, I'm very amazed, and I see people rise for the next generation. I believe that's the touch. That's where we have the touch for the next generation. So are we going to see more of books like this from you? Are you a crossover author, or you are based focused on children?
Yeah, I have strong passion for young people. Currently, I do a voluntary work for a particular organization that I submit content to. They print this content to young people. And I do it not because they pay me, but because of my passion for them. And over 50,000 young people I've reached every single day. So there's another book titled A Great Girl Called Malala and Other Stories, which I've also written. I wrote that also to inspire young people with regards, and especially the girl child, with regards to education. And the book has also sold out. I haven't been able to print more copies because I've been focusing on this for now. So I have actually always looked at subject matters that are very important to young people, and I also focus on that as well. You know, sometimes inspiration can also come for adult content. I don't mean adult content as plus 18. I mean matured books. For example, the book titled Unstable is a work of drama, and it focuses on love and passion and pursuing what you are passionate about, irrespective of what people say. And that was the book that won me the award and also was nominated for an Elect Nigerian Prize. Was staged at the Muson Center in 2018 and has been doing fantastically. Thank you so much.
Wonderful. Thank you, round of applause. Amazing, amazing. Thank you so much, Mr. Dickson. Thank you for your time and the investment you're giving to us tonight. Please, you have a say.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
This is what Okurin Creative Hub is all about, giving a platform to upcoming artists, whether in the visual art space or theater art space or painting space. You have listened to Dickson. His works are amazing people around the globe. Where is your own work? Let us have it today. Next, we have an amazing author all the way from USA. She's gearing up to join us and present to us in a moment. So I'll just read her bio briefly before we bring her up to speak to us tonight. Sefi Atta is a prize-winning Nigerian American novelist, short story writer, playwright, and screenwriter. Her books have been translated into many languages. Radio plays have been broadcast by BBC, and her stage plays have been performed internationally. Tonight, we are going to have Sefi Atta joining us live from the US. You're welcome, ma'am.
Hello. Hello, everyone. This is such an odd experience, but I'm really pleased to be here for my dear friend Toyin Adeshola. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Goodness, I might need a pillow.
We're just experiencing the Nigerian.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Oh, well, everyone can see and hear me, I'm told. It's a pleasure to be here for my friend Toyin Adeshola. I'm going to read the beginning of my latest novel, The Bad Immigrant. From the first section titled Dreams. And bear in mind that my narrator is a man. I was never keen on the idea of coming to America. My wife, Moriam, was though. She was the one who submitted our entry for the green card lottery through the Diversity Immigrant Visa Program. She then convinced me to leave Nigeria after we found out we had won. I had my doubts from the very beginning. For one, about my job prospects. But Mariam didn't give up until she had made her case. I just turned 40 and she was approaching. We'd been working for years and were barely getting by. She was a nurse and I was a public relations manager. How would we put our children, Taslim and Bashira, through secondary school, she asked, and to what end? Private universities were expensive. State universities provided substandard educations and students took longer to graduate because of government employee strikes. Mariam knew how to get to me. I taught literature for a while at a state university in Lagos and would have been happy to continue to. I went into banking in the late 80s because it was the only industry in the private sector where I could earn a decent living. At the bank where I worked, I was in charge of press releases and other external communiques. The boredom of my daily routine almost killed me, but my paycheck kept her happy. At the military hospital where she worked, nurses fled overseas as soon as they got plane tickets and visas. They held meetings to pray about winning the green card lottery. She had some job security as a government employee, and we lived in a 2-bedroom flat on Lagos mainland. What would happen when she eventually retired? She went on, how would we pay our rent? She would have to beg for her pension, as government workers did. I was guaranteed to lose my job once I reached a certain age, and I had no other skill but an ability to write. No, she said, there was no future for us in Nigeria. We would end up poor if we stayed there. I couldn't stop her. No one could. She filled out our immigration application forms and arranged our medical tests and interviews at the US Embassy. Her father was a retired army officer, and she prided herself on being efficient. To raise money for our journey, she traded gold jewelry and sold our furniture and belongings, including our Peugeot, which despite severe wear and tear, fetched several times what I'd bought it for secondhand. I went along with her plans only because of the educational opportunities for our children. I found out about American schools and examinations and contacted an old colleague of mine, Osaro, who taught at a college in New York. Osaro and I had both got our PhDs from the University of Ibadan. He was a lecturer when he left Nigeria. Now he was also a published writer. I was honest about my situation when I spoke to him. I wasn't one to pretend I was doing well back home to prove a point. Our economy was yet to recover from a dictatorship. We'd recently held our general elections after 15 years of military regimes. And who had we elected as president? A former head of state, a soldier in mufti, under the watch of UN inspectors, as the rest of the world congratulated us on our peaceful transition to democracy. I decided that Nigeria's return to democracy only meant that any corrupt, incompetent individual could legitimately run the country from then on. So perhaps it was time for us to leave. We arrived at John F. Kennedy Airport in the summer of 1999. My cousin Ishmael met us there. I was surprised to find him gray-haired, although with his height and pressed shirt and trousers, he looked somewhat distinguished. Ishmael was not my favorite relative, having borrowed money from me and never bothered to repay it. But he had agreed to let us stay with him temporarily. He worked as a financial planner in New York and lived in New Jersey. He was divorced, and his only child, Hakeem, lived with his ex-wife, Sandra, in Los Angeles. He was my senior by a few years, and despite his acquired American accent and mannerisms, would expect the usual Yoruba courtesies. So I'd asked Taslim and Bashira to greet him appropriately, and Mariam to call him Brother Ishmael. In America, he said, as he drove us to his house, every opportunity is given to immigrants to make it, wherever they are from. Those who don't take advantage of the opportunities are not meant to be here. They might as well get in their banana boats and paddle back home. They're failed immigrants. Now, those who persist and succeed are true Americans, but they were born in the wrong countries. I wish you would be quiet so I could take in the sights without having to make conversation with him. I'd only ever been overseas once before for my master's degree at the School of Oriental and African Studies in London. Queens was all overpasses and construction sites. On either side were towering tenements with zigzag stairs and dwarf buildings with cluttered balconies. Occasionally a billboard or graffiti on a wall caught my eye. Summer in New York was hotter than I'd expected, and I found it hard to pretend I was interested in what Ishmael was saying meanwhile. Everyone was protected under the Constitution, he assured us. Class distinctions would eventually become extinct. The homeless people we saw along the way had no excuse. They were drug abusers and alcoholics, lowlifes essentially. I was barely nodding as we crossed the upper level of George Washington Bridge and passed the exit to Fort Lee. Ishmael lived in a townhouse that was the model home of a development. It was made of red brick and stucco. He gave us a tour, which was far too long, and threw in the odd brag. He said his kitchen had granite countertops, not ordinary laminate. The furniture in his living room was some expensive brand. He didn't have a television there because that would be in bad taste. He did have a widescreen television in the den, in the basement, only to watch basketball games and pay-per-view boxing matches. And the wet bar there was custom made. He had not changed. When we were young, all he ever talked about was making money and living large. He was enterprising by nature, but lacked what I would call in English a certain maturity. He was like a little boy showing off his toys. Yet, he had become finicky, the way I imagined an old man who had lived on his own too long would be. At the front door, he made us take off our shoes. I hardly touched a cushion in the living room and he stopped to adjust it. I was nervous about how our children would cope in his house, as they both had a tendency to be untidy. Miriam cautioned them in his presence. You make a mess in this place, and it's me you'll answer to. She decided they should share the guest room in the basement. In the den, Ishmael handed Taslim the remote to the television and told him he had access to more channels than he'd ever seen in his life. In fact, we'd had satellite in Nigeria, but cable was new to our children. Taslim tried to figure out how to change channels, tensing his lips with each press of a button. It's my turn, Bashira said after a moment. She was timing him. She was convinced that Miriam and I favored him. Even if we gave them the same amount of water to drink, she would check Taslim's glass before drinking hers. I'd warned her several times that she was in danger of being permanently miserable. She kept monitoring him to see if he were getting a better deal. Taslim refused to hand over the remote, and she turned to me and said, Daddy. I shook my head. On another day, I would have had more sympathy. But we traveled overnight, 6.5 hours of which we'd spent in Frankfurt. Switch off the television, Miriam said. But I haven't had my turn, Bashira said. I won't tell you again, Miriam said. Taslim was only too happy to obey. He was almost 17, and Bashira had just turned 14. They would never have behaved that way back home. I was guilty of indulging our children, having been raised by a father who wouldn't hesitate to use a cane to discipline me. When I was their age, if my father found me watching television, I was in big trouble. The television in our house was for my parents to watch the news. My father was a headmaster and believed children were better off reading books. I never resented him for being strict. I only wanted Taslim and Bashira to be freer around me. Miriam felt I was spoiling them. Her mother was a disciplinarian in her family. Her father would order her to carry out military-style punishments like push-ups and squats. He did the same for fun, so Miriam didn't take him seriously. Over the years, she and I had clashed over how to raise our children. They have to fear you, Lukman, she would insist. Otherwise, they won't respect you. I would say our different ways of parenting balanced each other out. Miriam threatened more often than she followed through. I rarely made idle threats. Ishmael and I left the basement and returned to the living room on the ground floor, which had dark brown leather sofa, paired sparse, as if he couldn't afford to furnish it fully. But he said the idea behind the decor was minimalism, a new interior design trend. I couldn't decide if he had forgotten how much information flow there was from America to Nigeria, or if he just assumed I was as naive as an American would be first time in Nigeria. He continued his civics lesson, telling me the founding fathers of America were brilliant men. The Constitution was a document of pure genius that had stood the test of time and was not to be tampered with. Flaming liberals had deceived him before, but he was a die-hard conservative now. I wondered why he would suggest America was a forward-looking country, only to keep harking back to his constitution. Then I remembered that Ishmael had business savvy rather than intellect. I assumed one necessitated the other, but had often felt inept in the presence of successful businessmen I'd encountered in banking. He further contradicted himself when I asked if America were ever likely to have a black president, since it was such a progressive country. A black president, he asked, in this country? That will never happen. That will never happen in a million years. They will have a Hispanic president before they have a black one. They will have an Italian president first. Listen, Americans will elect a white woman as president before they elect a black man. The Oval Office is historically white Protestant territory. They barely allowed Catholics in there. The American dream has to end somewhere for everyone. We have to be grateful for what we have. I'd be grateful for anyone who can run Nigeria, I said. The American dream was nothing compared to the Nigerian one, where half-wits could take over the whole government and make Nigerians wonder if our independence was worthwhile. Forget that useless country, he said. Just be happy you're here. Actually, you look fresh for someone who has just come straight from the jungle. Not a white hair on your head and you're still trim. Your wife must have been taking good care of you. She must have been cooking with some of that pure, unadulterated palm oil. Is that the secret? It must be. She has to cook for me. Definitely. Maureen was an excellent cook and didn't mind catering to my relatives. And Ishmael's kitchen had to be the most over-equipped and underutilized kitchen we'd ever seen. Thank you. What do I have to do now? Can you hold on, he says. Okay, I'm holding on.
So as an African living in the diaspora, how do you experience that?
How do I experience? Goodness, I thought I was going to ask.
How do you experience?
I don't think it's something we can go through in a short amount of time. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, ma'am, I can hear you.
Yeah.
Can you hear me, ma'am?
I can hear you clearly.
All right. Yes, in the light of the book you just read from, there are many Nigerians wanting to, jackpot, like run away from Nigeria to abroad. What do you think the book can throw as a means of word of wisdom to those who are thinking of running out of the country, how they will acclimatize and how they will.
Goodness, I really can't hear you. Your question is being broken now.
If they eventually get there.
Pardon?
Wow. All right, we are typing the message to you now so that you can be able to respond.
So I can be able to respond to, what will be the experience of immigrants? I don't know. It depends on who they are and where they're coming from. I mean, what can I tell you? I can only speak for myself from Nigeria. How many different kinds of Nigerians do we have, depending on what their culture is, what their religion is, you know, how well they speak the language of the host country, when they arrived. So many different, there's so many different factors you have to consider if you're going to give any kind of real answer. But speaking for myself, it's been a journey. It's a long journey, you know, from Nigeria to England to America. And I'm still trying to figure out how to be a Nigerian. And I consider myself a Nigerian expatriate rather than immigrant in different countries.
Interesting. Thank you so much.
Yinka Davies. Hello, Yinka. You know I have nothing but love for you. You know I have nothing but love for you. I have nothing but love for you. My dear sister. Hello, everyone. It's so nice to see your faces. At least I know who I'm talking to now.
All right, do we have any question from the audience? We will now ask a question. Nothing but love. All right, we're going to take another question for you, ma'am. And one more question for you.
No problem. Oh, my words of encouragement for upcoming writers is always the same. Read a lot, write a lot, every single day. And don't give up. It really is that, for me, it's that simple. I've been doing this for full time for over, almost 25 years. And everyone's path is different, but don't give up. And if it's that important to you, also, I'm not into holding people's hands through the writing process. If it's that important to you to tell a story, you do it. You'll find a way, which is exactly what I did. You know.
Read a lot and write a lot, and don't give up. So for all of us here who want to be writers, it's going to be very much. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. I don't think that deserves a clap, but thank you. I don't think that deserves a clap, but I'm really pleased to be here, and you know, I'm very much in support of Tony and the work she's doing. Sorry, for Sammy, because I always get it wrong. Sickle Cell Advocacy and Management Initiative. I hope this helps with the launch of her Creative Hub. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you so much, man, for
Bye-bye.
support this evening. We appreciate you for the time. Bye. All right, we had a very inspiring time, and from what you said, you want to be a writer, keep reading, keep writing. The only word that you can expand your views, language, something down are through books. So let's keep reading and also keep writing for those who want to be authors. So you're welcome once more. The house is getting filled. Really, as we were having Auntie Sefi, the wonderful comedian walked in from Okurin, Nigeria. Yes, SACO the Comedian. You're welcome. All right, so amidst all this campaign, we have a major campaign called Objects to Be. We're driving people to adopt a warrior. You know, one of the greatest gifts you can give any warrior is access to healthcare funding. And the best to give that funding is through health insurance. So we are asking you out here to support Sammy in just donating 2,000 naira. That money for that shawarma, that money for that drink, just give us the box again. Let me show you the box. So you can donate to us physically to this beautiful box, just 2K in multiples of 2,000 or 2,200,000 or just 2K. So share with your friends, Tell your neighbors, tell your enemies, let's get this done. Let's adopt the warrior. So by next year, we can put over 50 sickle cell warriors or HMO. Just for 2 years. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Right, so the fire is getting hotter. And we have the next reader in the house. She's an amazing woman of great repute. She has been in the entertainment industry for 28 years. She's a Nigerian vocalist, a dancer, a musicist, and a joint of one of Nigeria's famous reality shows, Nigerian Idol. So with great honor, we have Yinka Davies here tonight. Casting us with our razzmatazz and also reading the long obituary book, Still Standing. With the right person, let's welcome Auntie Yinka Davies. You're welcome, man. You're welcome. This is great for you. Each is one. You know, she said, this is drama personified. All right, so tonight is going to be reading from an amazing piece of work, chronicling the life of an Amazon, Niyi Goriola, and she's going to be using theatrical, expertise to bring those words to life. So it's a session you kind of got to mix your work on. Hey, she's making a donation of 2 million. Can you see? It is not just the adorable God. Thank you so much, man. She's walking with the dog. Yes. She can. I can't believe it. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. Ilorin, here we come. Our drive into Ilorin was a 3.5-hour winding trip. Except for some kilometers of tarred road we drove through, mostly sandy and dusty roads. There were stretches of isolated areas with just bushes and vacant lands on either side along the way. Now and again, we passed several smaller towns and villages with houses built from red mud and palm tree leaves, while some were built with solid blocks and roofs of rusty corrugated iron sheets. A number of times, we made some rest stops along the way and arrived in Ilorin by early evening. I viewed my surroundings, not in the least expecting what I saw. It was a far cry from a highly industrialized city like Lagos. What struck me right away was how dusty it was, as many of the residences were covered in red sand. The roads were untarred, and the town looked like a large village. Quite a number of people used turbans and scarves to cover up, whether because it was a predominantly Islamic state or because of dust, I could not tell. Driving into town, we entered the government reservation area, GRA, where government officials were and other elite resided. The scenery here was quite different from the settlements we had passed. There were more greenery and flowers, the houses were more modern, and the hustle and bustle of the main township was not as evident. It was a quieter atmosphere. However, there were still signs of dustiness on the trees, the flowers, and rooftops.
We reached the house and our luggages were taken to rooms. Afterwards, we were introduced to the house staff, two of whom I forged friendship with during our stay. Mr. Raji, the driver, and Mr. Ekhaguere, the head steward. Typical me. Food. Our house was an old, nicely built colonial-looking house with large grounds, a variety of plants. You could get into the main house either through the back via the kitchen or through the front door. Linking the upper floor was a carpeted stairway situated by the dining room. I loved to peek through the stairway where I had a vantage view of whatever was going on in the sitting room, especially when we had visitors. In trying to settle in as much as possible, I started getting acquainted with my surroundings. By the time it was becoming easier to move around with crutches, nonetheless, I felt lonely because my sister was in boarding school and I was the only one around. In order to keep up with my education, I was enrolled in the best secondary school in Ilori at the time, Queen Elizabeth Secondary School. On arrival at the school, we were introduced to the headmistress, Mrs. Abraham, a nice West Indian lady. She was one with whom anyone could instantly develop a rapport, jovial and very accommodating. I started attending classes, but only a couple of weeks, because once again, I took ill. Nevertheless, Mrs. Abraham maintained a warm relationship with us, often bringing me books and various lessons, assignments to help me keep up with my peers. Due to the attack, I spent quite some time in bed. My bedridden state had now become a long, frustrating recurrence that resulted in having intravenous fluids pumped into my system continuously. Fortunately, we had become familiar with the medical director of the university's health center, and this made home treatments more practicable. While bedridden, I frequently had to be jabbed with analgesics to ease the pain. My backside had been jabbed all over, leaving no more space for injection. Considering the fact that I was very skinny, consequently, one day, the nurse decided to give me an injection on my thigh. This proved to be a fatal mistake because it developed into a deep sore that took over a year to heal. I did not know these types of sores were to become a yoke at different stages of my life. This was about when the word osteomyelitis was introduced into my vocabulary. Osteo what? I thought. But this word, whether I liked it or not, was to affect me in more ways than one. It was a name I would come to know, and regrettably so. I didn't know what it would take me into the dark abyss of anxiety, depression, hopelessness, and even bitterness. Indeed, I was taken to a place where I learned the meaning of long suffering. It is somewhat difficult to explain what osteomyelitis is, but basically, It is an infection of the bone and can be caused by a variety of microbial agents, usually a pus-forming bacteria. All bacterial osteomyelitis start as acute infections and most common is staphylococcus. Oh, my Lord, forgive me. It is commonly found in people with diabetes, sickle cell anemia. Sometimes this source, when severe, can last between a month to 2 years. Going out of the house into town was not an option. Therefore, my penchant for reading became more intense. Like a dog craves a bone, I craved a variety of novels. Comics, names. I collected lots of Beano comics, Sidney Sheldon novels. Yes, that's the guy that wrote The Other Side of Midnight. I was looking for his name, thank you. And even in famous Mills of Rome series. I also love to listen to music, especially on the radio, having to lie down constantly. I would turn on the radio and listen to anything from BBC to the local radio station. My fondness was more for BBC World, as the local radio station did not have much of a variety. Due to my confinement, a deep sense of loneliness crept in. My sister did not come home except for the long vacation. And except for the long vacation, and apart from the staff and my parents, no one else was available to relate with. Some friends I had made along the way who were now schooling in the area would occasionally drop by, but they were few and the visits were far between. My father's job afforded him the opportunity of meeting many people within and outside the university. Setting, organizing small dinners for guests was therefore not an uncommon occurrence in our home. During such times, I would go downstairs and assist the staff by either cutting up vegetable or helping to lay the table. I had a lot of fun learning the art of folding serviettes and creating designs like bishop's hats and candle holder. I found some moments to be an avenue of escape from my thoughts and worries to a place where I felt useful. Afterwards, I would run upstairs to take a vantage viewpoint on the stairway before the guests arrived. On one of such occasions, I was introduced to an elderly white American couple, Clyde and Bessie Works. Mr. Works was a lecturer at the university who, during their stay in the country, had adopted a Nigerian child named Stephen. Uncle Clyde and Aunt Bessie were a delightful couple to be with, and after their first visit, they became frequent visitors to our house. And Bessie had a soft spot for me and would bring books and other things to keep me engaged. During one of our visits, I learned that Stephen, who was then in his teens, had taken up interest in playing the violin and had become quite adept at it. My parents thought it would be a good idea if I could learn to play the violin as well. I thought, why not? A violin was purchased and I was introduced to Stephen's tutor, Mr. Post, an American. I liked Mr. Post, probably because she was much younger than the others and my age group. I enjoyed her company whenever she came over for violin lessons. Learning to play violin was not as easy as I had thought it would be. I found it difficult because of the way it had to be played, holding it up between my neck and the chin while holding the strings down with my fingers like a guitar. My arms ached, my fingers hurt, and soon this became an impediment to keep up practice. I remember Mr. Post would repeatedly say to me, "Tell me," in her American accent and emphasis on the end, "You've got to practice, practice, practice." And practice I did, but without much success. I had made every effort to learn to play Jesus, joy, man desiring joy to the world, and could not. The only time I was able to master was "Twinkle, twinkle, little star." Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you. That was a wonderful rendition of that book. Because I want to ask you about your experience. How did you feel? You cannot begin to, how do you begin? I'll explain. In 1994, I believe it was 1994, January 1994, I had this attitude for the roads. I would cross the road like I owned it. I would tell the car, I don't talk to the car. I would point at the car to stop because I was crossing the street. It was such a thing for me back then. All I needed to do was just do it. I don't even look at the car. I cross without running. I would walk, and I would walk with style. I did not even care who was coming. I have heard so many, speak to the hand. And 1994, I was in a play, and because I wanted to go to Ghana High Commission to eat. There's a place, on the island, because island only called area, Ghana High. They're full of friends. And then they wanted to go, the play we were doing then was Okurin by Felix Okoro. And I was angry because they wanted to go to the barracks. The barracks was on the other side of the Penn Theatre at the time. The Ghana High Commission was on the left side. And out of anger, without thinking, I crossed it. And I hit the car. Correction, I hit the car. And immediately I went down and said, "Oh Lord, I'm sorry. I've always been so, I talk to the cars, I don't even look at them. So I hit this car, I let the car go because it was my fault. I lived here, just next door to you, for 10 months. And so I understand what Auntie is talking about. Because she is still in it. This is her life. I only had 10 months of it, 1 year, and then I was in for me. I needed to learn to slow down. And I needed to learn to appreciate
life, appreciate people, learn to accommodate, learn to breathe. So you can't expect no, just like that. But I had to learn. So this is what the book is talking about, to appreciate what we have, who we are, and bless God for her life. She is, I do not know how to, I love my husband. God bless you. Your resilience, I do not know what else to say.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much.
That's so touching. And Yinka Davies, I just read from the bestseller book, Still Standing by Niyi Goriola. She just finished reading from the bestseller book by Niyi Goriola, Still Standing, chronicling the life, the joy, the struggle, and the victory of Toyin. And as we are listening to our own experience too, she had a period in her life that she sleep for 10 months. 10 months. Because she hit the car. Sometimes some things happen to you that God allows you to slow down. So don't question God at times. Just allow it to happen to you. And that's what we have learned from that session. The next session, we're going to have a man now, a wonderful young man, who's going to thrill us with a story, very amazing book. It's called, I'm trying to screen the book, it's called Black City Boy. An amazing thought. And we can't wait to hear from him. His name is Niyi Goriola. Niyi Goriola is a human capacity developer, and he works both in the public and the private space. And he is the project manager of Lead Center, an amazing NGO with the mandate to enlighten and empower as many people. Please, I would love to give our indulgence to reduce our mouths walking and our leg walking as we take our time to listen to me as a comes on board. But before it comes on board, I want to reiterate our campaign that is going on. And this campaign is Adopt a Warrior, as we can all see. And in case you're not yet physically to donate your 2K, content 2K, you can use this account. It's called Sami 500 by Warrior campaign. The account number is 0208883097 GTP. So send your urgent 2K now, as the name pretends, urgent now. 0208883097, and that urgent 2K is going to help us enable 50 warriors to be on HMO next year. So thank you for joining us in that campaign. And we also live in the gallery, we have amazing works of art. You can come and look at and buy. Just look buy. Right now, let's welcome Mr. Niyi Goriola to come to thrill us with Black City Boy. You're welcome, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Wow, so happy to be here. So happy to be here. Okay, thank you. All right. So I have 10 minutes to talk about my book. First of all, I want to reference God Almighty for the opportunity to be here. I want to also thank Toyin and the SAMI Initiative for this golden opportunity to share my thoughts. All right. My name is Niyi Goriola, like it was earlier said, and I have my book here. My first book, titled Black City Boy: Quest for Greatness, chronicling my life, my experiences, my struggles, and everything about me. Here in the book, I have, I think, about 9 chapters. Let me start from the chapters. Okay, I have my identity, okay, it's a chapter. State of mind, that's the 2nd chapter. My Lagos, 3rd chapter. A new tribe, that's the 4th chapter. Theory of the limited advantage, that's my 5th chapter. Little beginnings. Can you see great stride? Then, of course, the last chapter, COVID-19 and its effect on global economy and market. Like I said, this book just kind of document my experience of some people I've met, what they have said, and all of that. But let me go straight to a particular chapter that kind of interests me, and I feel it would resonate with the reason why we're here. So I'm going to just quickly read the chapter, State of Mind. Okay, I'll read now. My life was filled with a series of limitations. I was young and living with sickle cell anemia, a severe hereditary form of anemia in which a mutated form of hemoglobin distorts the red blood cells into a crescent shape at low oxygen levels. It is commonest among those of African descent, and it is characterized by abnormal breakdown of red blood cells, delayed development, inability to make concentrated or dilute urine, inflamed fingers or toes, pallor, shortness of breath, or yellow skin. I needed to always conserve energy in order for the cells in my body to function at their maximum capacity. Due to this, I was confined indoor and the television kept me company. Over the years, I developed unique imaginative abilities as a result of my exposure to television. I also became inquisitive and very articulate. My father enrolled me for graphic lessons at the local art store close to the house where we lived in Adamawa State at the time. I tried my hands on other art-related activities, which included poetry, singing, and acting. I also did very well academically. As a young lad, I knew I had so much potential, and people around confirmed this too. I often received admiration from people around me who confidence. I did not fail to explore my environment in the most creative way possible. Sometimes I raced with my friends in the rain, not giving a hoot about my health condition. I also enjoyed swimming. Without a doubt, all this triggered the crisis even more. There were days I went crab hunting, fishing and farming. I kept all kinds of pets, guinea pigs, pigeons, lab rats, etc. My health condition became unbearable and I found it difficult to breathe or stand on my feet anytime I had those crises. I was told to avoid strenuous activities and stay indoors during raining and harmattan seasons. A boy my age would not be held back by such restrictions. I took off with my friends anytime I had the chance. This only made it worse because I came down with the crisis again and again. I often missed school as a result of the crisis. I also repeated classes which slowed down the pace of my education. I already got used to what pain felt like from an early age, and it transformed me a great deal. Every direction I turned to for strength ended in frustration and depression as the crisis took a turn for the worse. Tears and sadness became my best friends. I was almost losing hope of survival. I remember a particular night my father stayed awake all through the night because I couldn't just keep quiet. I was in serious pain and concluded it was all over for me. I cried all night. My father rushed me to the intensive care unit of the family hospital near the house, where I was often admitted for weeks. I was lucky he had a well-paying job with medical insurance at the time. At this point, a light bulb came on in my mind. I must find a way to end this embarrassing health situation. I wanted to take ownership of my life, but had no idea how to go about it. I decided first of all to stop being a victim of torture. Due to the state of my health, I began to build rock solid courage and faith in God. I chose to look pain in the face and smash its core. I consistently thought about living a healthy life. I instinctively spoke positive words into my life from that time forward. Whenever the pain surfaced, I would fight back with the words, I would live and not die. It was tough at the beginning, but I kept at it. I did not have any formula as to how I was going to set myself free from the pain and the monster called SC. But I was determined to become free, to overcome regardless. Several years went by, yet I resolutely maintained positive thoughts, I resolutely maintained positive thoughts and utterance as regards my health. Gradually, the frequency of the crisis began to reduce from twice a month to once a month and then once a year. My health began to improve. My body stopped breaking down incessantly, and anytime I had a crisis, it was all gone before the dawn of the next day. I was encouraged, and as a result of this, and I projected more positive thoughts and words. Above all, I maintained a balanced diet and kept to the doctor's advice while at it. My genotype still reached SC, but I was delivered from a certain illness and stayed crisis-free for 5 years straight. I greatly acknowledge the mercy of God for releasing the grace for healing, which contributed ultimately to my supernatural healing experiences. As I journeyed through life, I realized that the same determination required to overcome a daunting health condition was needed to actualize my dreams. Through tough days and challenging times, I mastered the art of rising above limitations by speaking positive words and thinking positive thoughts. At the age of 19, with visions of greatness and awareness of the complexity of life and a daunting health condition, two fundamental factors were responsible for my bodily healing: resilience and determination. From my research, mental health emphasizes the connection between the mind and the body. It makes use of the power of thoughts to affect the body. I was able to develop resistance to body pain through the power of my mind. I built powerful positive thoughts, which translated into positive confession, making this positive confession, coupled with God's amazing grace, release supernatural healing into my tissues, bones, and cells. Now, this part of the book here shares my experience, growing up, and it was quite painful. Well, but I learned a lesson. It taught me how to fight. Yeah, that's one thing I would say. It taught me how to fight. It taught me how to be resilient. And this has built a kind of mindset that never say never. A go-getter, someone that strives. So, in conclusion, nothing gets me down. So for every opportunity I find, for instance, I work with the Lagos State government as I speak, but I have my own dreams. I have projects aligned, okay? And I'm working towards achieving these goals and projects. And I believe I will achieve them. Because I've been tried, tested, but I survived. If sickle cell could kill me at that tender age, why not? So this is just to share words of encouragement to people like myself that are out there that sickle cell is just a phase. That's how I see it. Okay, whatever you're going through, it may be tough at the moment, but it's just a phase. But depending on the kind of mind you have, depending on the kind of inner strength, depending on the kind of spirit propels you and it makes you overcome whatever situation or condition you may find yourself. So I'll just wrap it up at that point and I'll hand over the mic. Thank you very much.
Wonderful, wonderful. Mosquito claps. Wow, amazing. One of the words I got to me was very said, it stopped becoming a victim
item of torture within the SACO. So it starts from within. Now, I will throw it to the audience with any question. We have different people in this audience. Do you have any question to ask about is a warrior? All right, let's have our dear.
Good evening. Can you tell us there is any stigma and social and social?
Well, I remember when, in school, back in the day when I was still in primary school, I wasn't exactly stigmatized, but for me, I suffered the fact that I wasn't always available to attend school. Okay, and anytime I come back, after a crisis session or a crisis, rather, so to say, I come back to school, I usually have, for a person like me, I'm a very adventurous person. So it's difficult for you to see me in a moody or kind of quiet or kind of, sad. So it's difficult for someone to, bully me or make me feel traumatized, so to say. I don't know if you understand. So my spirit is, I have a fighting spirit. So anytime I come back from a crisis and I get back to school, I don't act like, or I don't present or carry myself around like, I just go back from the hospital and then just watch the way you play with me. I'm not exactly as strong as you are, and all of that. I don't project myself around. So it's difficult for people to see. Most people don't see or find it difficult to believe that I'm sick with them, or I'm okay, or you understand my point. So I don't think I suffered much of stigma or stigmatization.
Wow, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Can we give your hands again to brother? One thing we have learned from this session is that again, the pressure you have on yourself is what you express outside. So please watch your impression, so your expression will change over time. Thank you so much, Sabine. I want to recommend this book and all come to read today. How do you get your book?
Well, you can find my book on, right now, I have a few copies, but you can find them on Okada Books. Okada Books and Amazon. Just type Black City Boy Quest for Greatness, or type my name in Amazon or Okada Books. That's it. Thank you very much, Salim.
All right, so we can get the other books.
Okay.
Want to see the book, sure. Yeah, can you see it? Black.
Yeah, Black City Boy Quest for Greatness.
Great. Thank you very much. That's the other piece. You can get the other books too from Amazon, just type the name and you get the materials here. I want to read some quotes I saw before we bring the last speaker for today. I know it's going to take over the stage and make you laugh till you can laugh no more. Let's take a look at this. Before I started working in sickle cell space, the narrative I had about sickle cell was negative. But working in this space has made me see pain to the ashes, has made me see awesome people. And today we are celebrating literacy because books can enlarge your mind beyond the ordinary. So I want to encourage you to get your kids to start reading. This quote says, there is no such thing as a child who hates to read. There are only children who have not found the right book. Everyone has a book that opens up. I remember one book I read in this class. I am a visual learner, but there's a book I can't forget. It's called The Second Dream. I picked that book and I could not leave it until I finished the book because it opened me up to a new world. So get a book that will be the right book. So we're about to cruise to the next level as we have in the house SACO. SACO is an awesome comedian, MC personnel, everything. Let's welcome, as it comes to read, The Warrior Within by Panke Alawa. You're welcome, sir.
Good evening, everyone. It's a great honor for me to be here this very evening. So I know a lot of people have been reading, and so I have like five pages to read, and I'm very, very honored to be here this very evening. I would say that I'm also worried because I've gone through things in my life that I never imagined I was going to come out from. I used to be a laughing stock, and now I'm not a reference point. You know how it is. So, you know, and so every time I go through a stage and it looks as if things and what's working, I remember those parts, you know, those places where I was able to stand. I have close friends that are warriors also, and I see sometimes my first experience with someone that was at a reaction camp where she was in pain, and I couldn't understand the pain. It was as if someone was grinding her bones. And I was saying, please help her, you know. I didn't understand it as secondary school students finishing secondary school and realizing that this is what it is. And I'm grateful to come to this platform, serving to consistent disease and mental thickness, like I fondly call her thickness, knowing which she says she doesn't want to refer to. You know, whether you like it or she doesn't hate thickness, but she is said to be ordained thickness. But she is a phenomenal person, and I'm very honored. If I came all the way from the States today, I mean, Abuja to be, yeah, so I'm just going to read, and so this is chapter 4, growing up from Warrior of the Warrior Within. It's in nursery and primary schools very much blood to me, but I do remember two things about my younger years. I got glasses in primary school. I always had to sit in front because I couldn't see the blackboard. And in primary 4, the teacher finally pointed this out to my parents, and I got my eyes checked. The audition was somewhere on Lagos Island near my dad's office on Broad Street. You can imagine someone cannot see and on Broad Street, you take, Broad Street, yeah. I went there with my mom, where we beat up the friends together. But by the time my dad brought home the finished glasses, I hated them. In fact, the majority of my school years, I didn't wear the glasses unless it was absolutely necessary. But you know, back then, if you wore glasses, you were very intelligent, and you know it is. At the time, I had to make my own glasses. But at the end, it's not about, my younger sister actually finished with the first class. My younger brother finished with 2-1. Our last born finished with a 2-2. As a first child, I want to tell you, it's not about what you finish with. It's about how long as long as God is not finished with you. Yeah. I can tell you I could see without them for a long time. Looking back, I can laugh at the foolishness of my ego. I wanted to look cool, and the cool kids didn't wear glasses. So I had to sit in front in class so I could see the board. I also pretended to see things at a distance when others were looking at generally walking around in a blurry world. I joke now when I don't recognize someone I went to school with that I never actually saw them clearly then. Wow. When I started walking, my glasses became my shield from a world where people thought a pretty girl couldn't be clever. I put them on like a suit of armor, saying, hey, look at how intelligent and professional I am. It made me feel protected, but I was really just hiding behind them. I've since made my peace with wearing glasses. Found my inner cool kid who doesn't need external validation from anyone, and most importantly, I'm confident enough in my abilities not to need props to display my superpowers. I still find glasses to be inconvenient sometimes. I have a pair for when I'm working on my laptop for long periods, and people often stare or comment when they see me appear when I already have one on. I promise you, very vocals don't cut it. When you're staring at a screen for a long time. Another major part of my primary school years was that I got double shot twice. Honestly, my opinion, this was just unnecessary. I mean about the book smarts to skip those classes, but moving a child away from friendship they have developed over a year to new group who have had a year to form their relationship is not a smart way to help a child to form social relationships. Also, as a result of this double promotion, I was quite young by the time I finished primary school. So my parents said that I had to go to another primary school for 1 more year. Well, you give me the promotion. So my parents said I had to go to another school for 1 more year before going on to secondary school. We could have saved all this bother. I felt like if at first the school just let me go through each year in sequence. One summer, my sister and I were enrolled at Wavecrest Summer Camp, where we learned macrame. I learned how to make hanging baskets and paper flowers. I discovered that I had a talent for making things with my hands. For a few years, I was a hanging basket maker, and we had quite a few hanging plants in the house. A few of my mom's friends also got my hanging basket to hang them to their homes. In secondary school, I wanted to just be like any other girl in school, doing the thing that everyone else did, but I stood out as different. Anyone who remembers me from secondary school usually points out how the teachers would come looking for me during dance rehearsals or when the old school was polished. I loved to dance, and I always wanted to participate in school shows. Actually, I think I would have been a great dancer if I had been able to own my craft growing up, but it was not to be. At best, I could sway to the music and maintain some semblance of rhythm. I would also have loved to participate in sports. In fact, people assume, they say it's not assume, it's assume. I was one English guy I was trying to say is that assume, and I said assuming I want to give it 20,000, I want to collect it. I think that assume. I cannot assume that. I think I would have been a great dancer. Okay, I can switch to the music. I also love to participate in sport. In fact, people assume I did play some sort of sport. Maybe because I'm tall and skinny. Well, skinny as a teenager, that doesn't apply anymore. But my mother was not taking any chances. My teacher had strict instruction that I was not participate in strenuous activity. Sport day was just another day where I was forced to sit on the sideline. I wasn't even allowed to be the princess in the parade because of me standing in the sun for too long. My teacher would single me out and ask me to sit me out. Whatever seemingly strenuous activity was ongoing at that time. One teacher in particular, Mrs. Fikiesi, stands out to me. She was my cultural science teacher, and she really made an impact. Because of Mrs. Fikiesi, I was a gardener at home, helping to maintain a pretty edge of flowers to keep our compound pretty. Although now I can't even keep a bamboo plant alive. Yes, really, I managed to kill a bamboo. In my defense, because I was traveling for work and didn't give instructions for anyone to work on my plant. If Kiyesi was a teacher who always remembered to come and check on me whenever there was a group activity. She knew I was thinking to participate. So she always come to check that I wasn't doing anything strange. It was sometimes nice to be singled out and escape any group punishment. Let's all make noise together, but I get to sit in class while the rest of you get punished out in the sun. But as I did not have any control over the activities I was singled out from, in the end, it just made me feel like I was walking around with a sign that says I was different. I also became painfully socially awkward, and I was often labeled as snobbish. It was helpful because as a teenager, all you want is to belong. Those were rough years, but I did make some friends who are still friends today. Wumi has been my friend since secondary school, and she's my best friend today. Long absence from school made me feel like an outsider. I would be away for a few weeks and come back to a new stories of explored by teachers and students. It always felt like there was some inside joke that I wasn't part of. I'm sure you know that kind of. What happens? Let me tell you something. There's some gist patterns in your life, I mean, that's when they start. But somebody called me yesterday and wanted to ask me a question, and I think it was gist. I have to tell you something very important. I say your Delta uncles that have been impregnating people. So how does he relate? And they say Delta people. I bet you saw a Delta one that impregnated two and related. We're not related. Because my mother is Delta, I say your Delta uncle. This was around to 12 to give me the story. I called the call to the girl. It always felt like there was some inside joke. There was this one time where we had spent weeks preparing for a debate competition. It was one of those ones that had schools from across the state competing and we recorded for television. 2 weeks before the event, I had a crisis and I was off school for a week. By the time I went back to school, I had been replaced as a speaker. Even though I got to be part of the live audience, the disappointment from missing out on speaking was crushing. It was years before I spoke before the crowd again. I won't put myself up to participate as I was afraid of having to drop out due to safety illness. Sometimes I did not want to tell a friend that I had sickle cell. They would ask, why are you sick? What is wrong with you? And I would just give them vague answers or say I had malaria. I didn't want to tell them because I overheard discussion that made me feel it was something to hide, and part of me also did not want to be treated differently. I would love to continue, but we need to get a copy of this book if you don't have a copy. Thank you so much, and God bless you.
Thank you very much. Great. So
thank you for clapping my sister.
It's time.
Okay, hold on. Let me also do my This is what's under to I'm ready your question because
this is my concern.
Yes, this is another. Okay, so this is my first order to give. But back to the next. Yes.
We are looking at you.
Yes. Yeah, another order to give. Yes. But if you give me 500 right okay, all right, let's go. Yeah.
This is an amazing read from the book written by Ekhaguere.
Yes. I heard so much about her.
And she was an amazing star.
Yes.
Look at your own story also. How do you think people can deal with those dark days and still remain allow their light to keep shining?
But one of the things I keep telling people is when you have dark days, it's part of the process. When people go through some things right now, especially in the line of what I do as a company, as a comedian, and they say they have this, I know what to feel. I understand it might be different from my experience, but I have an idea because I've been there before. So what I tell them is, it might be dark days, but you don't stay long in the dark. No matter how dark it is, you put on the light, all you need to just look at if you're in a room, no matter how dark it is, there's always something shining, there's always one light that you always see. So one of the things that you do is you check people that have gone through your process. Everyone has to go through a process. The Bible talks about when you pass through, I will be with you. So there's a time when you have to be with you, when you have to do, and there are two types of suffering in life. The one so if there's anything that anything that everybody was having in front of me, in front of in my house, then and I would see myself on these things, and I would see myself doing things that I never imagined I was going to do. And most of them have become a reality today. So in the midst of darkness will come. Darkness just came out with no light. Okay, yes, light is light. You need that light. You need that light. And
Very inspiring. Very inspiring. Thank you, round of applause. Great. Any question?
on the game.
Okay. of the day. The two pastors ask me question.
We're all supposed to start.
All right, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Wow. We've had an amazing treat of inspirations, of sharpening of skills, and I believe that we have all been equipped. So I want to thank you, online audience and also the on-site audience for being with us through this period. Before we leave tonight, we're going to have the Amazon herself.
We have first me to speak. Hi everybody, I just want to thank, for those of us who were online, I saw you, I thank you so much for joining us online. And for those of us here, the activity still continues. Exhibition is running on for the week. We finish on the 7th, and if you have children, there's an opportunity for them to partake in the Kids Paint Creative Session on Saturday at 10 a.m. And we have the networking and painting session at 3 p.m. on Saturday as well. So just hook us up, on social media at Sammy Updates, on any of our social media if you're interested, and we'll send you registration link and all that. So thank you all for watching, and we thank our guests again for being a part of this. God bless you. Have a great week ahead.
Thank you very much. That was nice to meet you. And so, sit tight, follow our pages on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram at Sammy Update. The program continues tomorrow at from 10 a.m. Come to the gallery, come and check out the paintings, come and be inspired by the pictures. Tomorrow we have a special program. Stories of social impact, how people use storytelling to inspire, how they use their creativity to share stories of that social impact. It's by 2 p.m. tomorrow, live at the Sammy Center. Thank you so much, and you have a wonderful evening. God bless you.